Metro Manila Commission. Gemiliano Lopez, JRV Hongkumlik. Facts: PD 824 or an act creating the Metropolitan Manila, was enacted to establish and administer program and provide services common to the cities of Manila, Quezon, Pasay, and Caloocan as well as 13 municipalities in the surrounding area. This is in response to the sharp growth in the population of Manila and the proliferation of commercial firms and industries, which resulted to the ever-increasing inability of the separate local governments to cope with the ensuing serious problems. Metro Manila shall be administered by the Commission. Petitioners assail the constitutionality of PD 824. They rely on this provision: no province, city, municipality, or barrio may be created, divided, merged, abolished, or its boundary substantially altered, except in accordance with the criteria established in the Local Government Code, and subject to the approval by a majority of the votes cast in a plebiscite in the unit or units affected. The Local Government Code was not enacted until 1983. Issue 1 PD 824 is unconstitutional as it was enacted prior to the creation of a Local Government Code. Held no ratio, the challenge does not suffice to call for a declaration of unconstitutionality. The last vestige of doubt has been removed by the present constitutional provision regarding the Batasang Pambansa. That provision clearly recognizes the existence of the Metropolitan Manila. Justification as to PD 824. In PD 824, reference was made to the referendum held on February 27, 1975, wherein the residents of the Greater Manila area authorized the President to restructure the local governments into an integrated unit of the manager or commission form of government. It was then pointed out that the rapid growth of population and the corresponding increase of social and economic requirements in the contiguous communities has brought into being a large area that calls for development, both simultaneous and unified. It is vital to the survival and growth of the aforementioned Greater Manila area that a workable and effective system be established for the coordination, integration and unified management of such local government services or functions therein. There is necessity for the unified metropolitan services or functions to be planned, administered, and operated the highest professional technical standards. 15. The foregoing constitutes the justification for and the objective of such presidential decree. Application of Paredes vs. Executive Secretary. In Paredes vs. Executive Secretary, the court came to the conclusion that the constitutional provision on the need for a majority of the votes cast in the plebiscite in the unit or units affected would be satisfied even if those voters who are not from the barangay to be separated were excluded in the plebiscite. It cannot be argued therefore that the plebiscite held in the areas affected to constitute Metropolitan Manila in the referendum on February 27, 1975 was not a sufficient compliance with the constitutional provision. With the voters in such 4 cities and 13 municipalities, now composing Metropolitan Manila, having manifested their will, the constitutional provision relied upon by petitioners has been satisfied. It is to be noted likewise that at the time of such plebiscite in February 1975, there was no local government code. Presidential authority to issue the PD at that time. There was no interim Batasang Pambansa. It was the President who was entrusted with such responsibility. The legality of the lawmaking authority by the President during the period of martial law was already established in Aquino vs. Cumlic. Sangguniang Bayan. The point has been raised, however, that unless Presidential Decree No. 824 be construed in such a way that along with the rest of the other cities and municipalities, there should be elections for the Sangguniang Bayan, then there is a denial of the equal protection provision of the Constitution. The point is not well taken. It is clear that under the Equal Protection Clause, classification is not forbidden, but classification on a reasonable basis, and not made arbitrarily or capriciously is permitted. The classification, however, to be reasonable must be based on substantial distinction which make real differences, it must be germane to the purposes of the law, it must not be limited to existing conditions only, and must apply equally to each member of the class. All such elements are present. There is no need to set forth anew the compelling reasons that called for the creation of Metropolitan Manila. It is quite obvious that under the conditions then existing, still present and, with the continued growth of population, attended with more complexity, what was done was a response to a great public need. The government was called upon to act. PD 824 was the result. It is not a condition for the validity of the Sangguniang Bayans provided for in the 4 cities and 13 municipalities that the membership be identical with those of other cities or municipalities. There is ample justification for such a distinction basis in the Constitution. Article 8, Section 2 of the Constitution expressly recognized the juridical entity known as Metropolitan Manila. Such express constitutional affirmation of its existence in the fundamental law calls for the dismissal of these petitions. There being no legal justification for the declaration of unconstitutionality of Presidential Decree No. 824. Nor was it the first time that there has been acknowledgement in law of the creation of Metropolitan Manila. Control of the President. It is undeniable that the creation of the Metropolitan Manila Commission is free from any constitutional objection. There is, however, a question that may arise in connection with the powers of the President over the Commission. According to PD 824, the Commission, the General Manager and any official of the Commission shall be under the direct supervision and control of the President. Notwithstanding any provision in this decree, the President shall have the power to revoke, amend, or modify any ordinance, resolution or act of the Commission, the General, and the Commissioners. It may give rise to doubts as to its validity insofar as it confers the power of control on the President. That control he certainly exercises under the present Constitution over the ministries. His power over local governments does not go that far. It extends no further than general supervision. These doubts, however, do not suffice to nullify such a provision. Succinctly put, that construction that would save is to be preferred as against one that will destroy. To show fidelity to this basic principle of construction is to lend substance to the equally basic doctrine that the Constitution enters into and forms part of every statute. Accordingly, the presidential power of control over acts of the Metro Manila Commission is limited to those that may be considered national in character. There can be no valid objection to such exercise of authority. That is a clear recognition that some of its attributes are those of a national character. Where, however, the acts of the Metro Manila Commission may be considered as properly appertaining to local government functions, the power of the President is confined to general supervision. As thus construed, Section 13 clearly appears to be free from any constitutional infirmity. Abad Santos, dissenting, won the referendum of February 27, 1975, did not satisfy the prohibition contained in Art. 11, Sector 3 of the 1973 Constitution. For one thing, the provision speaks of the criteria established in the Local Government Code. There was then no local government code, so there were no criteria. Also, the grant of power to restructure the 4 cities and 13 municipalities in the Greater Manila area under such terms and conditions as the President may decide was so broad that it was in fact not an intelligent decision on the part of the people. I submit that a grant of power must be definite to be valid. It must not be nebulous and uncircumscribed so as to amount to a total abdication thereof. Finally, the referendum did not include all of the peoples of Bulacan and Rizal to ascertain if they were willing to give up some of their towns to Metropolitan Manila. The referendum suffers from the same infirmity present in the case of Paredes vs. Executive Secretary, cited in the main opinion, where I dissented. 2. The January 27, 1984, amendment to the Constitution providing for representation in the Batasang Pambansa and which allocates representatives to districts in Metropolitan Manila cannot be construed to constitutionally validate P.D. Number 824 for the simple reason that the issue before the people when the amendment was submitted for ratification was not the creation of the Metropolitan Manila Commission.